Everybody, welcome back to Keeping It Real. Jim, Terry, Carl. We had Chris Tilley on last week, our UK editor, and he brought that British steel.
Replacement Chris, as I call him.
Subbing in for two. He was man enough to cover for two people. But so we have some things to talk about this week, but right off the bat, kind of just want to give you guys a shout out that this time we're ahead of the podcast curse, but still being hit with it. The Warcraft trailer will drop on Friday morning during BlizzCon, and knock wood, we should have it up on the site around then. So we know it's coming, and we've seen a 15-second tease, though.
And so have you, most likely.
So have you, although by the time this post, you'll have seen the trailer. So let us know how it is in the comments below.
I thought it was incredible.
So from that 15-second tease, I know it's only 15 seconds, but they wanted us to see it. So what'd you think of what you saw?
It looks cool.
Yeah.
I think, that's about, you can't really take away a plot from 15 seconds.
Yeah.
We were talking a little earlier, it definitely has sort of a Lord of the Rings vibe to it.
Any Golden Compass or Narnia vibe?
Well, so that's
too?
my one fear.
That
and I have
one
a feeling,
bear shot thing?
I have a feeling that by the time we see the full trailer, we'll see if it's a hot mess that looks really pretty, or if it actually has some substance to it.
That sounds like Tinder.
Because that's the fear, right? Like for me at least, anything that relies so heavily on CGI, I'm always concerned that is your focus too much on that and not on the quality of the actual movie you're making. But I'm a big fan of Duncan Jones, specifically Moon. This is going to definitely be his biggest scale project to date.
Right.
But I definitely think that he has the storytelling chops.
And he's a gamer too, and he loves Warcraft. And his dad was in Labyrinth, so he's checking the right boxes.
Not only that, but his dad's David Bowie. So.
Yeah,
It's true.
What'd you think of the video?
Yeah, same feelings there. I think my biggest question mark for this movie is, and we've talked about this a little bit before, but like, how are we going to balance these two stories that are supposed to be like sympathy on both sides?
Right.
Because I think a lot of times you go into a movie like Lord of the Rings, there's clear evil on one side. Okay, these guys are evil. And then there might be some gray area characters, but the bulk of the story is heroes versus, dark versus light. This is going to be like, hey, these guys, it's like a war that has justifiable, things on both sides.
Orc, human, guy on guy romance. Core of the movie.
What?
That's all we need.
What?
That's our emotional core. That's how we
There
like
we
both
go.
sides.
You've heard it here first. That's the
You're
plot
welcome.
of Warcraft.
Everyone's going to love that idea. No problem.
Nobody in the
there.
comments will possibly take it.
That might be a bestiality thing. I don't even know.
But
you raise a good point, though. Like, how are you going to balance those two sides of it? And
how do you make a villain, and what's the villain? Would it be interesting
I think
if
it's
the
Dominic
humans
Cooper.
were?
I think it's like the human king.
Yeah.
And it's from what it's been at the last 3 Comic-Cons, so I just want this damn thing to come out already. And it's basically, not to get too political, but I think it's a not too thinly veiled message about refugees and immigration, because the orcs have to leave their basically desert world. It's like a dying world, and they transfer through this portal into the more human and mage kind of world, which already has its own different groups like elves and everything, and its own problems. But now they're coming in, and basically all the people in this world are like, well, they're going to take all our stuff, so it's a war. But both the Viking fella there,
Travis Fimmel,
the guy who grabbed my ass, him and the main orc. I think it's not Toby Kebbell doesn't play in the main orc. Yeah, he's an orc. I think it's Rob Kaczynski, I think, plays him. They're similar in that they're both dads and they're worrying about legacy. So I think what you'll see is these two guys ultimately forming a bond against a common villain, which will probably be Dominic Cooper, because evil British guy.
Right. The interesting thing is that the sort of inception of Warcraft is a game about resources. It's about dedicating resources, and I think it's in that way it's kind of interesting that that's what it's about. Like, that's where the war is. Don't come through and steal all of our stuff. This is our land, and then now we're going to fight over it. I mean, it is also a very real world problem that's existed for millennia, right? At this point, so I'll be interested to see how they handle that play off of each other.
Yeah, I think what works best in these types of movies is having it grounded in something real that we
Right.
can all relate to. And if that is what, the main conflict ends up being, I think that could be really interesting. It sort of reminds me of District 9, which, was this sci-fi story, but
Right.
very grounded in problems currently going on in South Africa and that we can
Just
all
like
relate
Chappie.
to. So yeah, I mean, if they really can ground it in something real that people who might not have played Warcraft or World of Warcraft or had to worry about allocating their resources for hours on end in front of their computer screen can relate to, then all the better for it.
Well, you mentioned Blomkamp, and I just want to throw this in because it broke. This was last week's curse of the podcast. Alien 5 is on indefinite hold, according to director Neil Blomkamp.
No, it
himself.
isn't. I believe Ridley Scott's making it.
No, he's doing Prometheus 2. Yeah. Well, it's on hold because of Prometheus 2. So it's like, if one of the rumors or reports was that Ridley just started basically kind of poaching the ideas that that Alien 5 was trying to do. So, I think I would like that. And so Alien Paradise Lost, he even took the name Alien on there. So it's...
Yeah. Well, that was weird for us, right? When that was announced, we were like, what is going on with this? I mean, it's tough to argue because he created the thing. It's tough to say, like, oh, you can't have this back. But
resources.
It could,
Yeah.
it could actually be one of those things where we, at one point in time, are like, what would a Blomkamp Alien movie look like? Because when stuff gets delayed like this, it falls apart usually.
Well, the whole story that came to be, like, the whole origin of Alien 5 is sort of incredible because he posted to social media, hey, this was the Alien movie I was working on. Everyone was like, this looked awesome. And suddenly they were like, Neil Blomkamp's making this Alien movie.
It's come full circle. He announced his arrival on Instagram and then announced his departure. So
the mother alien came back.
I feel like we could almost at some point in the future, and this is the sad thing, I hope Neil Blomkamp doesn't become the Joe Carnahan of sci-fi where it's like he's got 1,000,001 things going and none of them ever happen.
Yeah.
Or
Guillermo, same thing. Like he does make projects, but like so many, there's like a lot of corpses along that road too.
Ridley too. Ridley. I mean, Ridley. I would almost feel like it's worse to get Ridley Scott like attached to your movie because, one, he's 75 or 77 or whatever, so he's only got so many movies left. But he can get. It's like a cat getting distracted by something bright and shiny. It's like I'm going to go make this movie. Ooh, Black Hawk Down, and then he runs and does that, and that's like suddenly his next. Like it happened with Matchstick Men and all these things that like. He was going to do all these other movies, and then...
I think that could be interesting to hear from you guys. I know when we talked about Ridley doing Prometheus 2, Alien, Paradise Lost, there was sort of a heated response. So I'd be curious whether you guys would be more interested to see Neil Blomkamp's Alien 5 or Ridley Scott's Alien, Paradise Lost.
Maybe we should do a poll on this site that's just which of these would you be more interested in doing?
Or even a Twitter poll, since that's a thing now.
Oh, a Twitter poll.
Yeah.
The kids today
that.
with their stuff. Let's move on to Star Wars because why not?
Because
Why not?
Force
It's there.
Awakens.
It's not going. It's not going anywhere. I actually have a
How many
reader
days?
email.
How many days is it now?
It's what is it? 6 weeks? 5 weeks?
Yeah,
I think it's 5 weeks.
It's getting like
40
real
something?
close now, and it's kind of strange because I can remember being in the summer and being like, oh, it's still
you
6
felt
months
it?
away. Yeah, exactly.
So
There's been an awakening.
got an email from Andrew
Hi, Andrew.
Chen, and he asks a very simple but provocative question: which movie has more to lose if it's bad? Star Wars: The Force Awakens, or Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice? What do you guys think?
Batman by far.
Yeah.
It topples that DC universe. Well, it doesn't necessarily do it, but that is a shot. If that fails, it's gonna, I think, create some problems for Justice League and stuff like that. I think if Star Wars is a little underwhelming, they always have like the Star Wars fans are gonna.
It didn't
love
stop the prequels.
Yeah, it didn't, right? And like, there's always going to be a lot of Star Wars fans who like whatever it is, and even if that movie is bad to the general public, still everybody's going to go see it out of curiosity, and they've already got all the other movies in production.
I think some of the differences too, Star Wars is family friendly, so you're automatically going to have
True.
that audience, whereas Batman vs Superman does not. It's relying on this more adult, probably fanboy audience. I think Star Wars hasn't come out yet and it's already won because the merchandise is so all-consuming. I was thinking about this the other day because we were talking about how much you guys loved the Phantom Menace trailer when it came out. And I'm dating myself, but I don't even necessarily remember having seen that trailer. My whole life was just consumed by the Phantom Menace merchandise. That, you walk into Pizza Hut or you grab a can of Mountain Dew and like you're already excited. And I was walking back past my local 99-cent store and there were just like C-3PO, BB-8 water bottles hanging out outside. I was like, what? Like this is everywhere.
It's at the
airport. It's at the airport when I'm like buying my Odwalla smoothie.
It really is like whoever puts, I guess, Disney consumer products, like you need them in charge of like FEMA because they can get things to anywhere. It's like, oh, we can't get water to the Astrodome. Disney could have gotten
You could not see
like
a single trailer or TV spot for The Force Awakens, and like in your core that this movie is coming out because it's everywhere. So I think that already is a success. And also, even though the DC movies there are a bunch of different ones coming out. I think what Star Wars has to its advantage is even if you didn't like The Force Awakens, every movie that comes after it is going to have a different flavor to it. Like we have the anthology movies. We know Rian Johnson is doing Episode 8. So I think that even if this one isn't perfect, there's more hope. There's a new hope for the future, if you will. Whereas I think
there's just a lot more, I think, confidence in the team that they've built up around there too.
Toward it that I don't know is necessarily there.
And they have a fresh slate, and really, the expectations are all just fan created because we're not going to know any of these new characters. We don't know. Whereas DC, you're dealing with decades and decades of established lore, different interpretations, people not having a mixed response to Man of Steel to begin with, a brand new Batman, Wonder Woman first time on the big screen. Like it's got a lot more levers it's going to have to pull.
Let us not forget Aquaman and Lex Luthor also being introduced in this movie.
And then probably we already know Ezra Miller's The Flash, so he'll probably pop up. Ray Fisher is Cyborg, so yeah.
You guys kind of make an interesting point in that there are so many characters that have, so much history behind them. Every single one of those characters could be a potential turnoff if they do it wrong. So like if somebody doesn't like the way Lex Luthor is done or Aquaman or, like that could ruin the movie for somebody who's a big fan of all those things. And there are big fans of all those things.
Yeah.
For Star Wars, it's like, okay, we've aged the characters 30 years realistically
it's all the same
because they're doing
people
that.
playing them.
And then there's a bunch of new characters who, you just have to react to. You don't have any baggage around them. So yeah,
doesn't mean
that's
you
a really
like
interesting
them.
point.
I mean, we've told the story before about like before Phantom Menace came out, Jar Jar, he's supposed to be like the new Chewbacca. And it's so funny, you go back, you watch the original Phantom Menace trailer and it's all right there. All his stupid little bits were in there and we blinded ourselves.
I went back and I watched it and I was like, how did anyone
get
all
that
so,
crap.
like this was just what the movie was. It was
They
all
told
right
you,
here.
Man. They told you. And you didn't listen.
They didn't lie. But yeah, I mean, I think
They did
you're
a Jedi
blinded
mind
by
trick on
like
you.
the. I mean, it's really powerful though to see new footage of something with that Star Wars theme and with like the sounds. I think the sounds actually are what bring me into it because weirdly, when I was watching the very, very first teaser trailer for Force Awakens, I was someplace where I could barely get internet reception, and so the first time I watched the trailer, I didn't even hear it with the sound on. It was like not working right, and so I watched it and I was like, oh, that was okay. And then like later in the day, I was able to get a better connection and watched it and I was like, that's more like it, like then I got the feelings that I wanted from it. So it's there's a lot to be said for that.
I also would say the sentiment coming into them is a little bit different. Like in the not too recent past, or not too distant past, we had both new Star Wars in the prequels, and then we had a new Batman in the Christopher Nolan Batman movies. And I think obviously most people were not very satisfied with the prequels. So the idea of coming in and doing it again and doing it right is really exciting and energizing.
A lot of goodwill.
Right. Whereas with Nolan's movies, everyone thought, I think for the most part, even with complaints he might have had, he got it really right. And so it's sort of still that, well, okay, we're doing it again. That's still, in our memory, and that we already had a great Batman. Okay, I'll watch this one, but I still don't know if I need
Marvel
it.
hanging over it too,
Right.
and just the sort of the nerd mental schism of I can't like both DC and Marvel,
Well,
so
you can't.
you're automatically against, loggerheads over it. But you mentioned merchandise at one point. So before we get to the main topic of that, I just want to say that it's being reported in the news. Theaters are banning masks, weapons, basically don't show up as a stormtrooper to go see Force Awakens because they're not going to let you in. Don't show up with any weaponry, no mask. You got to show yourself, people.
Which is a sad sign.
That sounds weird.
I mean, I'm sure that some people have issues with that. I think that it makes absolute sense. It's just the times that we're living in right now.
Yep.
And I'd rather have people go in and not have masks and weapons and everyone be safe than someone sneak something in.
It's in stark contrast, though, to, I don't know if you went to the first screening of Phantom Menace. I did. I went to a couple. And it was a party, man. It was a cosplay party. They were doing lightsaber battles in the front of the theater, and until the movie played. But it was like a real party atmosphere, and that actually continued for all three of them. Actually, like even Revenge of the Sith was. Same thing, went to that screening.
Lord of the Rings was like that,
yeah,
too.
Lord of the
That
Rings.
might be something fun. I mean, God knows what Disney is doing, but you can't bring this stuff, but you show up and you get a lightsaber with your popcorn or something like that. Something where you can still have that excitement. It's just provided in theater in a safe environment.
Now, about Star Wars merchandise, there was a rumor, and we did reach out to Disney Consumer Products, and they never got back to us. Make of that what you will. That they're going to basically yank from existing Star Wars IP, all Slave Leia merchandise and marketing.
Do you think that was part of Carrie Fisher's?
Yeah, I think that was motivated by that exchange. Like, I think she made a really big sort of PR move and said, "Don't be a slave."
To Daisy Ridley.
Daisy Ridley. And I'm sure Disney was paying attention and was like, we're going to create some goodwill around this.
I think there also has just been a lot of commentary now. People are reflecting and looking back at the legacy of Star Wars, and there have not been many iconic female characters. Leia is, the most recognizable of all of them. And then of Leia's outfits, it's her slave costume that's like the sexy look. And, yes, it's sexy, but the connotations that go with it are, fairly negative.
Why do you think it's so popular then with cosplayers? You go to any convention, and it's like the default to costume for any young woman in shape. They're going as Slave Leia.
I mean, I think it makes
now
people,
it's Harley Quinn.
I think everybody likes attention, and I think it's a way to get attention. At a comic book
I feel
convention.
I feel like we can quickly spiral downward into conversations we don't necessarily want to get into if we're projecting why any specific person wants to wear that outfit. It is a cool costume, but also it's one of two Leia looks. Really. Like there's when we find her captive with the white robe and the I almost said earpiece, like earmuffs, but her hair
headphones,
coils,
her Beats by Dr. Dre.
and then we have the iconic slave look. It's
nobody
it's just,
cosplays as Hoth Leia with her
I've seen it.
nice little really?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Winter coat and
no,
anybody has the Bespin Leia? Cloud City
I saw
Leia?
that
that's a nice
couple Comic-Cons ago.
But
I
I
saw
also,
somebody doing
if
Bespin.
you look back at iconic hot nerd women, Carrie Fisher in her slave outfit is a pinup essentially. So I think that's
it was like the new Barbarella, basically.
right. Yeah. So I think that's part of it too. It's had that whole stigma to it. But I do like that people have sort of peeled back the layers on it and been like, maybe we shouldn't be idolizing this. And as we're having a chance to change the Star Wars conversation, okay, let's go back and let's have the conversation about Leia be the woman who she is now instead of this one rather terrifying moment in her life where she was a captive of a giant slug.
Yeah, she is. I mean, she has said, I don't want to say contradictory things, but she is also at last Comic-Con when she showed up on stage. I think she was asked. There was some commentary I was there for, and she basically said something along the lines of, "I was a slave," or something until I choked the son of a bitch, or something like that. Like she is, she has said sort of like that she didn't let it trying to remember how she exactly put it. Well, I don't want to misspeak. So
Well, I
I'll
mean,
just leave it at that. But
I think her message in general is one of empowerment, right? And that's what
Right.
she's trying to say to Daisy Ridley. And then in turn, I think that's what Disney is trying to say to the public. Like,
Yeah, we're not
if they truly do retire this, I think they're doing it quietly, because I think there's also like a contingent of Star Wars people who that's like important to. You know, it's like, oh, this is iconic imagery from Star Wars
And
that
it
I've
sells.
attached myself
I mean,
to.
as a business thing, I mean, you know, if you look at it from their maybe cynical business side, you're losing money, but for doing the right thing, but you're losing money. But I guess another question I have is, and it's just something I see more and more in general now, like whenever there's something that we now find distasteful or has become controversial, the idea is to just wipe it like it never happened. Like suddenly now it's, you know, it might as well be Nazi paraphernalia.
Well, no, I think there's
You know,
a
it's
difference
like-
between not continuing to produce something
Yeah.
and, you know, erasing it entirely.
But they're saying they're going to remove it from Star Wars IP.
Yeah, so it's
So
not
that
going to
means
exist
it's not gonna
in
be in any-
comics or any of that stuff.
Not going to be
Like,
in any books. It's
yeah,
gonna,
they're not
you
going to
know.
relate back to it. I think that's probably, if this is true, this is all still a rumor we haven't heard back in any other way.
Yeah.
Several people have supported it though, like so
Right,
it sounds
right.
like it's the truth. You know, I mean, it is, I think, for some fans going to be like, hey, this is just part of the thing, and it was in there, and it deserves to, you know, have its place. I think it's just like they're saying, we're done with this part of it.
Yeah,
We're not
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
produce
It's been 30
more.
years.
If you have a desire to see this, it's there in the
Right,
past.
right.
You know, and then you can move forward from here.
I think if they take that scene out of the movie, then that's when we'll,
Right,
like,
right.
we should
I would
raise
be
our
really,
pitchforks.
really up in arms if they were
I,
like,
I mean, that was like not
they
a
did
Well, I
that-
mean,
sincere
they've altered the
thing.
Absolutely.
movies in other ways. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility. Maybe they would tweak the look, but we're just speculating. We're getting far afield.
Yeah,
But
I don't
don't-
actually think that they would go
I
that
don't think
far,
that'll
but I
happen
do
either.
think, you know, for them quietly, not so quietly, if this rumor proves to be true, but just sort of like phasing out and phasing into a new era of Star Wars where we don't need to keep lingering on
Yeah.
the slave Leia of it all,
Right.
then that's fine. It's a new time for Star Wars. We have plenty more to look forward to. Yeah.
Now we did get those new character posters this week, and there was a video
have brought
put up on the
props to
site
recreate them.
where proving no detail is too small for somebody to just talk about. So we see that Leia is kind of back in front of the almost like the command center kind of map stuff. What do you think of basically like she's like back on war footing? She's like a war commander again, like even her outfits that we've seen and everything.
that's the most interesting reveal from any of those posters, because I think most of them were just a straight up look at the characters, but that was actually like, oh, you know, number one, they're at war. You know, it's not a smaller story, seemingly, right? It seems like it's still a bigger story where they're still battling First Order or whatever. I mean, I guess you could surmise
we
that
knew
from the
that,
battle
knew that from
footage
the
and
trailers
stuff like
because
that.
we've seen, you know, the X-wings.
But
in
the
battle,
fact that she's instrumental in the battle plan still kind of shows you where, you know, the rebel forces, I don't know if you call them rebels,
Resistance
the
now.
resistance forces still are and still operating 30 years later. I think that's kind of interesting. I think also puts her, you know, right back in that command position that we saw her in. I would say mostly in Empire, where
Yeah.
that's where she was probably the strongest character
Right.
in that setting, because she was commanding people, she was like being looked up to by everyone around. So
She sort of went out into the field then in Jedi
Yeah.
too. I think that
Yeah.
that's still, we see that continuing
Have
there.
you ever seen cosplay, the Endor Leia cosplay? I'm surprised.
I've seen some indoor people, but I don't know if I've you know what, I've seen the indoor which smock. What is that thing
Yeah.
called?
Yeah, like her camouflage kind of like hoodie.
Poncho.
Poncho,
Yes,
yeah.
That's the word I was looking. The camouflage poncho. I've seen
Of
it. But
all
I
the
don't know.
of all the iconic looks in Star Wars, I think the Endor smock is not.
Well, I'm just surprised nobody's got like a mom and her kid haven't gone as like Leia and Wicket.
Oh,
That'd be a cute little cosplay.
I bet they have.
If
you've
you have,
seen it,
yeah,
send
let us
it.
know.
We wanna
Yeah,
see it.
yeah, seriously. Let's move on from Star Wars.
I will say, you know, because I keep an eye out for cosplay at every convention. I am like disturbingly upset. Well, not disturbingly upset. That's really, really harsh. I just want to see more Ewoks, man.
Yeah, why do people hate Ewoks so much?
They don't bring. There's barely any
It's
Ewoks
so
at
lame.
conventions.
It's
Yeah.
like, wait a minute, Star Wars is for kids? It was always for kids, man. You were a kid when you saw it, and then you grew up, and now you started like, oh, that stuff's not cool anymore. They're trying to like
in defense.
make
I
them
mean,
all
I think
cute.
like if you could bring your dogs to conventions, then they could be Ewoks.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, there's some
The furry
really,
creatures.
really cute dogs.
I feel like when you're a kid, you
Oh,
want to
yeah.
be like the cool fighter Leia or the cool fighter Jedi.
I always wanted to be Han, but then like I think in actuality I'm not as Han as I think I am. Like,
I feel like you've got some fun. Don't worry about it.
It's funny, everyone now it's like, oh, Han is the coolest one. In fact, I did a video where I basically said that, but you forget that, no, when you're a kid, you relate to Luke.
Yeah.
Luke is the one that you want it to be. And it's like, it's like Robin and Batman and Robin. Like, you relate to Robin because he's more like you.
yeah.
So,
Then you
know,
hit puberty and you're like, girl or
Right.
guy. You're like, I
Yeah,
either
and
want to
then
be
you-
you or I want to be with you.
you become you want to be a scruffy nerf nerd herder.
Nerf herder, you were
Yeah.
Wow, that's gonna be my new. I think that'll be my new title for myself. Scruffy looking nerd herder.
pretty accurate.
Pretty accurate. That's kind of what I do.
I will just say, I really am excited about Leia in a commanding position. I
Yeah.
think that's an awesome progression for her character. She was never one to just let, fate throw her where she may be, even though she often was stuck as someone who needed to be rescued. I don't think she was ever a damsel in distress
Yeah.
Well,
necessarily.
I actually think Star Wars was a little ahead of its time back in the day in making her and kind of like subverting that, like
With
she
its
was
one female character.
but I'm saying like even in that moment where she's rescued, she's in charge.
Right.
She's the person who's like knows
Into the
everything.
into the garbage chute, Flyboy.
Yeah, it's like she knows everything. She's commanding him
Yeah.
immediately.
She's not exactly like grateful or excited to see him. She's like, you're a little short for a stormtrooper. Like her first time meeting her brother, it's a dig. She didn't know it.
I
at
just
first,
love
but,
that she's super sarcastic in that movie too. She's just like
Well, and Carrie Fisher now,
Puts it
like
out there.
she's so well known just as a personality now. Like I want to see some of that come out. Like what's Leia like now as an older woman? Like is she's just gonna bust everyone's balls? I'd love to see that.
And I think we will. Like,
think we will,
I
yeah.
think we obviously didn't get a Luke character poster because they are not showing us Luke.
Yeah.
But it makes me really excited that Leia was one of the
Yeah.
5 characters
So
who
how
got a
much
character
screen
poster.
time do we think she's gonna have a much larger role than we've probably suspected? Maybe.
she and Han, I think, are gonna have a lot of screen time, and then I think Luke is not gonna get much screen time until the next movie, and then I think that's gonna be his movie.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like she's gonna be in the movie, but separate from what we've seen. It looks like it's Han, Finn, Chewie, and Rey who
Right.
are going off on the Millennium Falcon together. Whether that's to meet up with Leia, or who knows? But I hope that we get a lot of her being in command and finding out,
Yeah.
just checking back in with these characters and
Yeah.
finding out what
Would
they
be good.
turned into after all these years.
Well, and also, sort of like iconic family stuff. If they truly are together, and that that is. Daisy is her child, or one of these characters is her child. I want to see her in mother mode too. Like I want to see all that stuff. So
Yeah.
We're gonna be
cool.
so crushed when we find out Han and Leia were probably not together for 30 years and they had no
Well,
kids.
whatever. They'll have great ex chemistry when they do see each other. Then
what if it turns out she's with Lando?
Yeah,
I'd love
that's
it.
been the meme going around.
I would love it.
Let's
she's
move
with
on
Jar Jar?
from Star Wars because we don't have too much time left. But there's some DC rumors about the Batman solo movie called The Batman. Rumor has it that the villains would be Red Hood and Joker, and it's going to borrow from the Under the Hood and Death in the Family storylines. And basically, it's DC's answer to Winter Soldier. The old sidekick who now becomes like his enemy, but is there still a good person left in there, and all that kind of thing. It sounds really cool, but is that too much of a swipe from the Marvel playbook?
Nah,
it's a little
'cause
on the nose.
Batman.
it's Batman, and
Yeah,
it
and Robin.
is drawing from the comics, like popular
Yeah.
pre-existing comics. Yes, they might have similar story beats, but I think that with Winter Soldier, they tried to be more of like an espionage
Right.
thriller. Hopefully, they will take on a different theme or style of storytelling with this. I mean,
Yeah.
you have to have a standalone.
I just think
Batman
it's interesting
movie. I think, why
too
not?
to
Yeah.
basically do a Batman movie where you acknowledge he had a kid sidekick and you never actually have to deal with any of that, of how he brought him under his wing, any of that. You just jump right forward to like, past all the weird stuff of a grown man taking in an orphan and training him how to beat somebody half to death, you know?
Right.
You
Although
just jump right past that.
I think you can do that in a way that is just in a montage or something that is like really like opening credits. You see, you know, you see how that relationship developed, and then you're on to the here's what the movie is. You know.
I think it'll be interesting if they do bring Joker in though, because we already know. I guess Suicide Squad spoilers if you haven't seen this, so plug your ears. But we know that Batman will be in Suicide Squad to some extent.
Yeah, he's in the trailer.
Yeah, so that could, be a setup for this.
Yeah, like why,
Yeah.
that's the reason why he probably captures Joker at the beginning of that is he finally killed Robin, who knows?
Here's a question. We don't know anything about Joker being in Batman v Superman, right? Like
I've heard rumors. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't be completely surprised if there's a tag.
I feel like there's got to be a through
Suicide
line.
Squad comes out in August. What if that scene, and I'm just spitballing here, what if the scene we've seen in the trailer of Batman capturing, this won't make any sense because I believe the scene in the car with Batman capturing Joker and Harley Quinn might be in the past or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was going to say, what if the
flashback.
tag is like that scene from that movie? But yeah.
I kind of feel like there's got to be some kind of through line. So Joker being in the credits a tag or something like that makes sense because, when's the Batman movie rumored for? 2018 or?
I think it was supposed to be 2017, but
so that's
2018
fast.
probably is more. Yeah.
If it's 2017, they're going to be shooting it relatively soon.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Ben Affleck. No, actually, it'll have to be 2018 because Ben Affleck, they're filming Justice League next year. He's filming and directing a movie right now. He's put on weight for that movie, so now he's going to have to go and lose that weight and get back into Batman shape and then film Justice League, and it's going to be a 2-part back-to-back shoot. So that's pretty much all of next year, and then he has to promote his own movie. So it won't be till 2018. So that means he would have to make the Batman in 2017.
I kind of feel like I always say this, but I don't think Ben Affleck has so many movies in him as Batman.
Yeah.
So what if the Batman has him die in the end, pass the mantle, for real within that universe that they're now developing?
Be interesting. Would be. One other DC report. Nicole Kidman is in ongoing negotiations to join the Wonder Woman movie in an unspecified Amazonian role, and a lot of people just are assuming she's going to be Hippolyta.
Yeah.
So that sounds good. When casting Amazons, get a tall actress. Tall, admit her. Let's a couple other little news items I just want to throw out there real quick. X-Men Apocalypse is reportedly going in for some reshoots or additional shooting, and that Hugh Jackman might be involved in these.
Do you think he's ever self-conscious? He's like, they always put me in right at the end. They always put me in the reshoots.
They don't want me around all the
This
time.
movie needs more Jackman.
He's becoming like their Loki.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know, we're going to have to throw in Tom Hiddleston somewhere,
The Wolverine protocol. Bring him in. Bring him in.
Exactly. Engage the Hugh Jackman protocol. Quicksilver, Evan Peters talking about his arc, said that he's on a basically search for his father in this movie. And, if they're going to follow the comics, Daddy is Magneto,
There were certainly hints of that in
So
this movie.
so that would help that, why he ends up on their team, and Magneto's obviously one of the acolytes for Apocalypse, so it'd be father versus son. Eventually, they'll probably team
Dad,
up.
how did you get somebody pregnant when you were 10?
Then
He's Michael Fassbender. Of course he did.
It's true.
He looks at them. The guy. Did you see Shame? The scene of him on
I've
the
seen
train,
Shame.
just eyeballing that girl.
That wasn't the scene I was thinking of.
Yeah.
but sure.
I know.
Hey,
I know.
Hey,
Yeah, the grandfather clock. We heard you.
Oh,
The chimes
what?
at midnight.
I don't
I'm
know
just
about
saying.
this.
You
brought it
somehow
up.
made that already not especially sexy scene somehow something that turns my stomach.
I'm just saying. What else Oh, we were talking about, yeah. Other news items.
It goes off the rails when we start talking
Exactly.
about Fassbender.
It does,
just all
every time.
evolves.
So Power Rangers.
Yes.
They have acknowledged, excuse me, that they're going to keep, despite earlier reports, they're going to keep the original characters' names of Jason, Kimberly, Zach, Billy, and Trini. I never watched it.
Look.
I was already
guys.
grown up when that thing came out, all right? I'm sorry, but it's too late for me. I'm not getting on board the Power Rangers thing.
Yeah, I don't think I could go and just like straight face watch
Nope.
Power Rangers at this point. Be
Not
like,
happening.
I would
Sorry.
love to get both of you to do that now.
Oh, maybe we
because
should
of
do
that.
a Let's Watch Power Rangers episode 1 and
We react to
shots.
things of
Yeah.
us just watching it like, the hell is this? And it'd be like if you were, like when we were little, you'd have Spider-Man on the Electric Company and then his own short-lived show, live action show. So it'd probably be like, a grown-ass person watching that being like, really?
That's the name of the show.
This was
Grown-ass person
Grown-ass
watching.
person watching ...
Well, here's a question for you guys, because I will say, I mean, we're talking about Power Rangers right now. None of us were really Power Rangers fans. I was much too obsessed with Sailor Moon and Pokemon at the time. But for you guys, in them making a new Power Rangers movie, where it was something that even now the thought of going back does not appeal to you, what is it that would make this movie have a broader appeal? Obviously, having the original character names is going back to the original fans,
yeah.
but for you
I'm
guys.
excited about the movie. It's not like I want to see that movie. The show just was lost on me. It wasn't part of my time,
I'm just curious, look, those costumes are ridiculous. Everyone knows it. It was a kid show. Like, so what are they actually going to look like? What will those costumes look like where fans will be okay with it and other people will be like, well, that's a movie I can go see. It's not just for me to take my kid to. Because clearly they do want to appeal to families and the fans, but it has to have a broader reach. Everyone's looking at Marvel. Like, they've nailed how to make something that was supposed to be for kids cool for everybody.
Yeah.
And mature enough,
Call Michael Bay. He did it right with the.
Yeah,
I can't
right
even say
there.
it with a straight face.
Yeah, no, I can't.
No, I mean, and not too long ago we had that that YouTube short film
Right.
starring James Van Der Beek and Katie Sackhoff. That was awesome. That was a Power
Yeah.
Rangers
The Hepburn Tracy of our time.
Yeah, the modern gritty, Power Rangers, and that was really cool. That was the moment where I was like, oh yeah, this totally can still appeal to people and not just be like stuck in the 90s, even though I know it's still on the air and,
Right.
and happening. So yeah, I'm really interested to see what they managed to pull together.
I also
for it.
want to know, we kind of chatted about this beforehand, but this one's for you folks out there. The Red Ranger was the one. I know the Green Rangers. I know this much. I know the Green Ranger, everyone goes cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs over him, but that he wasn't part of the main team originally or whatever. Right. But the Red Ranger is the one that gets the most clicks. I'm just kind of curious, what was it about the Red Ranger that really grabs you guys? Why was he, evidently just looking at numbers, so popular? I'm curious. Consider yourselves a focus group. We want to know. Seriously, I actually want to know. Break down the characters for us and why they're appealing. You can do it in the comments. You can send us an email at keepinitreal@ign.com. Legitimately curious. So educate me, you bastards.
Educate me, you bastards.
Let's move on to something else. Fantastic Beasts and where to find them.
When you said fantastic, and then I almost thought you said 4, I was like, wait, no,
I
wait,
know, yeah, I was not ready.
don't say it.
Oh, I'd rather keep talking about Power Rangers. I think. Fantastic Beasts. So we finally got our first look, official images, and New Entertainment Weekly of Nude Salamander or Nuke
Scamander.
Yeah.
Nuke Scrotum Batch, whatever his name is.
I thought you said nude salamander.
It's
Yeah.
always at this
New
point in the
salad
podcast
maker.
that we end up talking about dicks and scrotums. Like,
just
sorry,
saying.
every time
every
without
day.
fail.
Every day.
Well,
Newt, played by Eddie Redmayne, who is
Yeah.
the main character of these movies, looks awesome,
he's
frankly.
an eccentric magizoologist as opposed to those dour magizoologists.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm a huge Harry Potter fan. I have a Deathly Hallows tattoo. I went as the Deathly Hallows for Halloween. Like
Nice.
I love this franchise.
Yeah.
I went as forget it.
It said in 1926.
I was gonna say I
which
went
think
as
is
Dobby,
interesting.
but
nuts.
My favorite character,
Just carrying socks around
Dead
your
Dobby.
house.
Dead Dobby. He's up there. He replaced Dead Ewok for you?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So we have the actual kind of a plot synopsis for it, so I'll just read it out here. Tells the story of the English-born wizard Newt Scamander, an eccentric magic zoologist who travels to New York for a very specific purpose, which the studio is keeping under wraps. I would imagine he's trying to catch a beast. And what I like is that he's got
dragon, probably due to the imagery, right?
Exactly, yeah. He's got a bag like Hermione's where it's far bigger on the inside, so he can store all these things. And I think this is really
Hermione
cool,
or
actually.
Mary Poppins.
Exactly. Yeah. It keeps all the things in different compartments, all the magical creatures that he captures, and there's a bunch of different characters, and a lot. It's set in 1926 New York, so there are a lot of Americans, and the American word, I guess, for Muggle
Is no-maj.
No-maj.
Which we were sort of talking about, like, think 1920s New York accent, where they're like, hey, get that no-maj out of here.
Hey, get out of here, you no-maj.
It's kind of like when I used to work at McDonald's and people didn't know what to do with the word fajita, so they'd go through the drive-thru and be like, I'd like one chicken fajita. You're like, I don't think, I didn't hear you right. Just
I mean, I think it's interesting that we do get a different word for a non-magic person, which is what a muggle is.
Yeah.
Because muggle is so ingrained, like muggle is in the dictionary. That for J.K. Rowling, who wrote the screenplay, to say, okay, we're going to have an American version of this word,
Right.
is very strange. I just assumed that muggle was, the same word that everyone used.
Well, according to the EW article, the wizards in America are currently in hiding from the no-maj because basically the story is what happens when this uniquely skilled English wizard travels to whiz-phobic America and a variety of his creatures, some quite dangerous, get out of their case. Put a lock in your case.
whiz-phobic, by the
that
way.
sounds a little
Phobic.
goosebumpy for
Doesn't
me
it?
after
Yeah.
seeing that movie just came out.
But made a lot of money, so I guess that's not exactly a bad comparison if you're Warner Brothers.
This movie's going to print money no matter what, because they're going to put the Harry Potter angle out there so hardcore.
Oh,
And
It
people
will-
are desperate for more Harry Potter.
But I wonder if it's going to have the same problem that the Hobbit movies had. Not that they didn't make money, but that they didn't have that same sort of emotional impact, because the story of Harry Potter is the story of this orphan who is, forever tied to this evil dark wizard who killed his parents, and it's about his journey fighting this dark lord.
Yeah.
And that has some deep emotional resonance in
Yeah.
his coming of age journey and
yeah.
everything that came with it. And we had so long for that to really marinate in our culture.
And it was also, it mirrored the coming of age of the young readers who grew up with the
Totally,
books, and
yeah.
the books got
Yeah.
darker and more adult.
So for this, it sounds a little bit more light.
Well,
and
initially, some of the
quirky.
first comparisons, and I think I don't know if we coined this or if it was something that was out there, but basically it's like Indiana Jones with magic.
Yeah.
But my fear is will it just kind of feel like a mummy movie at that point? Like a period movie. I'm cheeky and British,
I guess I just want to
I'm
know.
the male Rachel Weisz, and
I want to know more about why we should care at
Yeah.
this point, like beyond the fact it's Harry
his
Potter.
name is New Salad Maker. That's his name.
Beyond the fact that he has a hard to pronounce name, like I want to know what is the larger scale
what's at
story.
stake.
Yeah,
and-
what's at stake?
I guess that speaks to the idea of them being essentially outsiders. It sounds again like an immigrant tale. Like you're living in a hostile environment.
Well, the second you say phobic, we think of all
Yeah.
the various phobias we're dealing with in our own country
Right.
right now, and the way that those people are treated. So I guess there certainly could be some resonance.
Yeah,
there.
is it a kind of an analogy, a metaphor for Islamophobia? Like essentially, this is their religion. You're coming over from another country. People are scared of you.
Maybe.
Kind of
I think it's like you have to. There has to be conflict, right? So like, I don't necessarily think they're doing a big message thing. I think it's more like, hey, this is the conflict. There's this
Yeah.
concealed society, and if you screw with that and unleash a bunch of magic in a place that doesn't like magic, like people.
But
are gonna
J.K.
get huffy.
Rowling is writing the script, and she doesn't strike me as somebody who would, veer away from
No.
an on the nose political kind of metaphor. So I
Especially
feel
if
like
you
she
follow
will.
her on Twitter, I
Yeah.
love how in your face she is about
Yeah.
about her.
Well, let's.
beliefs.
We have a few moments left, and we do have to talk about some other things. So let's. We're gonna have plenty to talk about with Fantastic Beasts for like the
Ever.
next couple of years. So
Ages, as they say.
I do want to mention that, and this happened just actually before we came in to record a press release that Sean Daniel, one of the producers of The Mummy, is teaming up with some European filmmakers to make a feature film, hopefully the start of a series, of The Witcher. Now, it's going to be based on the Sapkowski novels, and they have a guy named Tomasz Baginski, forgive me if I got your name wrong, directing. He was, I believe, nominated for an Oscar for a movie, Cathedral. And then a Buffy and Grimm veteran writing the script named Thania St. John, and it's aiming to come out in 2017. Now, it's going to be based on the novels, and I know the games are based on the novels,
Right.
but just what do you think, just cursory, because I have not played The Witcher and I haven't read the books, but I'm becoming interested in it.
Right.
What do you think it is that's appealing about this that'll make it kind of stand out from all these sort of fantasy or sword and sorcery things that are coming out now in the wake of the success of the Lord of the Rings movies and Game of
I think
Thrones?
it's mature, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's like
It's nice dark fantasy.
it's dark fantasy. There's mature elements, adult in a lot of ways, and I think they won't
So
shy
you're
away
saying
from
there's
that.
sex?
There's definitely sex.
Okay.
There's definitely sex. There's lots of violence. There's It's like less on the Lord of the Rings tip, a little bit darker than that, a little bit more arcane. You know, like I would say that is going to. I don't know for sure, but I think that's where they're probably going
Right.
to go with it to separate it out from these things. I think actually in Scandinavia they made a
Yeah, there was a
or
movie
series or
several
something
years
like that
ago
based
that
on
was
Witcher.
so it's not its first time in
And
live action.
going back to the source material versus saying we're doing an adaptation of what the game did with it as
Yeah.
well. It gives you more freedom from a storytelling perspective.
And from judging from the press release, it sounds like they're not necessarily adapting the stories directly, but they said the themes of the stories.
Right.
So it sounds like they're taking a kernel of an idea and kind of doing their own thing, which is cool. To offer people something to new, and you won't feel like, well, they're not directly at, they didn't get that adaptation right because it happened X, Y, Z in the book or whatever. And it sounds kind of like, I'm thinking, I know it's a different game, but it kind of like what they're doing with Assassin's Creed, where they're like,
Yeah.
we're just creating a new guy. I'm not saying they're doing that here. It's going to be the, oh my God, what's the guy? Geralt, right? The Witcher. It's going to be him, but like the idea of like, nah, it's not the games. It's not, all that.
Well, and interestingly enough, we can't even say this is this is going to redeem video game movies because it's not, right?
not,
It's based
yeah.
on source material.
How much do you think they'll actually, let's say this movie turns out to be a hit, do you think, will they use the games to try and help market the
Yes.
thing or vice
Oh,
versa?
yeah, if it
Oh,
becomes
sure.
a hit, yeah, definitely.
Do you think it hurt, if the movie is horrible, does it hurt the game though?
no.
No?
I
Okay.
think it would be really, really hard for external IP to hurt a game that is
Yeah, the
good
Hitman
and
movie didn't hurt
universally
make it.
seen as good because a lot of what Hollywood has been unable to capture is the experience of what it feels like to play that game. And I think as long as like those experiences keep coming out and keep being more and more engaging. Like, Tomb Raider is a good example. Like that's coming out soon. The original game for that was really awesome, and I mean the reboot, the one that they did like a couple years ago, it's awesome. And I think if a movie came out subsequently that in the middle of it that was like that wasn't so great,
People would just say,
People
well,
would be
they
like,
just didn't
cool.
get the
Yeah.
games.
thank God we have the games, you know.
Yeah, like if a comic book movie failed, it doesn't tank
Yeah.
the comic book series.
I mean, but this is definitely a sea change in the mentality because it used to not be the case. I mean,
Right.
hence Nintendo not like trusting anybody for the longest time. I just want to, you mentioned Tomb Raider, and I just want to throw out an idea I had after seeing the new Call of Duty Black Ops 3 trailer. Cara Delevingne
Yeah.
as
Lara
Lara.
Croft.
Yeah, she's English. No, is she English or Australian?
She's British.
She's British. Okay.
I want to pitch another movie because I just saw Tomorrowland not too long ago. The Girl from Tomorrowland as
Robertson.
young Lara Croft.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
No, not Britt Robertson. The
Oh,
young girl.
Athena, the one who.
Yeah, like
Yeah, what's her
Was
name?
it- was it
Reefy or
Reefy?
Reese's,
Yeah, I'm
Cassidy
sorry,
or something
yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
she was
Yeah,
so
she was
good in
great.
Tomorrowland. I
Fantastic,
think I
yeah.
felt
She was
she
the
was
best
like
thing
Yeah,
about
she
that
was
movie.
absolutely the best
about
thing
that
about
movie.
Yeah.
She'd be a good like young Lara Croft, like young.
Yeah,
Hey,
like
I'm
any prologue
in
stuff.
boarding school or whatever. I think that's her story. She's in. she
Now
does
watch,
what
she'll
she-
end up,
Yeah.
like, getting cast as Nancy Drew or something instead, Let's move on. I just want to throw out, there are some Doctor Strange set photos out there. It's now filming in Nepal. So we see Benedict Cumberbatch as a bedraggled Stephen Strange while he's doing his soul searching in the Far East. And he does have some gray streaks. It's very Dark Knight Rises looking. Or even just like whenever they showed Shaggy Bruce Wayne and Bale had his beard and that, like, so he kind of looks like that. I'm peeved, and this is my particular thing with comic book adaptations, that he has brown hair and not black hair. Doctor Strange has black hair, okay? Get it right. If he can have black hair as John Harrison in Star Trek, he can have black hair as Doctor Strange. Get it right. You got time. You just started filming.
You've got time.
You got time to fix this.
Let's
You
get
hear me?
Do
Feige
it
on
in
the horn
post,
right
yeah.
now.
Feige on the Horn is going to be another show we're going to do. Yeah. And it's just him with the Ricola thing. What do you call those things? Or a Vuvuzela or something.
Yeah.
Vuvuzela.
Yeah.
What? That's my butter.
So, opening this weekend, we have Spectre. Your last.
Spectre. Everybody's. No, it's not my last one.
It's
I'll
still
do
better. It's still better than the friggin' writings on the wall.
Yeah,
song.
thank you everybody who writes to me on Twitter and tells me that that song is somehow stuck in your brain.
It really is.
I'm
We
sorry.
get so
So
much
good.
feedback on that.
I'm so sorry.
And then the
But so
Peanuts
happy.
movie is opening up now. The Bond movie has already opened, record-breaking in the UK, and internationally it made I believe around 84 million, and it's projected to do anywhere from 70 to 85 million this weekend here in the States, and definitely pull the box office out of the doldrums it's been in since Labor Day. Well, no, not really, because since most of October, except for The Martian. Yeah, but and then the Peanuts movie is projecting around like 40 to almost 50 million. I caught a lot of flack for this in my review of Peanuts. I like the movie, grew up with Charlie Brown, everything. My fear is that this is going to be a front-loaded thing for the movie. It's a 3D CG animated film that is distinctively, the best thing about it, and it could also be its detriment, is that it is so quaint and old school and in the spirit of the Peanuts. They didn't make it be something it wasn't.
Right.
But I just don't know if in the day and age of these kind of louder, more boisterous, and frankly obnoxious movies like Cars or Ice Age or whatever, if it's almost too quaint for kids.
We'll see. I mean, I kind of feel like there's still goodwill towards Peanuts,
People
like
still
on
bring
TV.
back the Charlie Brown movies, the holiday movies and
think
stuff.
Yeah,
kids
but
still
it's
watch
just,
that
it's
stuff.
only, but we're talking about like a thing you can watch at home 2 set times a year. Will you actually take, I feel like more adults are going to go see this and want to see it than kids. I don't know the word on the street or on the playground, okay? I'm not that guy.
I still think, though, that Charlie Brown and Snoopy are really recognizable characters that, you know, like Ronald McDonald and Mickey Mouse, that even as you're a kid who's never seen anything Charlie Brown, you're still like, oh, look at that cute dog that I always see sometimes.
I guess my
once in a while
concern
see it
is
all the
that
time.
could it be like a variation on what happened with the 2011 Winnie the Pooh movie? Got great reviews, old school, it was hand-drawn animation, I think, too, or was it computer? No, it was hand-drawn.
Maybe. I just think that
And it
Snoopy,
flopped.
I think Snoopy and Peanuts and Charlie Brown skews a little bit older than Winnie the Pooh. I think,
Yeah.
even if you're a 6-year-old kid, you don't want to go see a Winnie the Pooh movie necessarily. You're like, I'm too old, too
It's
cool
actually
for that.
probably the salvation for the Peanuts movie too, is that parents will go and then try to bring their kids to the thing that they loved when they were kids. I think that's going to actually lead to more sales than if it was just something.
I
that
hope
was
it does well. I hope I'm
directed at kids.
happy to be wrong in this one. I want the movie to do well. It's a sweet movie, and it does capture sort of the melancholy tone of all those Peanuts things. That poor little guy really needed an antidepressant in the worst way.
Just a bunch of hugs.
But yeah, so are you guys going to see Spectre this weekend? Or?
All the reviews have been so just, lukewarm on it that I don't even feel desperate to go see it anymore.
I liked it. I think it's got a lot of problems, but it's and we can talk in spoilers terms next week. It's already been out for a week in the UK. The worst part of Spectre is Spectre.
Yeah.
And after all that weight of bringing them back and everything, yeah, it was sort of, and it tries too hard to tie all the past movies together.
That's what I heard. I mean, I'm intrigued to go see it.
I
like
wanna go see
Bond
it.
movies, but I will say, I haven't really read any reviews either. I've just seen headlines popping up in my Twitter feed and on Facebook, but I've been like, wow, it just really did not seem like this movie connected after there had been so much goodwill for earlier Daniel Craig Bond movies.
But here's where I think suddenly now critics are paying attention to Bond.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't before.
Right.
Bond was
Right.
formula. It was a junk food movie. And as a lifelong Bond fan, most of them are okay to good.
Sure.
There's only a few great ones. And people have been spoiled with having two great ones from Daniel Craig, Skyfall and Casino Royale. And, so with Casino Royale, and especially with Skyfall, they were like, take us seriously as films. But the flip side now is now that critics are not judging you, like, you're trying to make a film, but the foundation is still movie formula.
Right.
And the critics now are not going to just appreciate Spectre as a movie because you've conditioned us to expect more from you.
Yeah.
And so trying to go back to just another filler Bond movie, I mean, that was most of Pierce Brosnan's and Roger Moore's stuff. It feels like now to critics, it feels like a betrayal. And I just hear a lot of this typical internet hyperbole of, you've ruined it all for me, or, worst one in 30 years, I think Forbes said. And I'm like, oh, come on, no, it's not. Did you
Well, I
see,
think for me, what colors it a
Octopussy?
little bit is the fact that Daniel Craig is so clearly over it. And I believe I saw a story that maybe he actually does have another Bond movie in his
Yeah.
contract. Maybe all of
He
this
was saying something today, he was like, he's just exhausted. He wants a break. He'll probably do another one. But, he was not the best salesman. on this
Yeah,
one.
and so I'm like, well, if I can tell that your heart was not in it,
Yeah.
then
Why should
what
my
are we even
wallet
doing
be?
here?
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll come back next week after
I'm
we'll see
curious.
it.
I want to hear
Yeah.
from you guys what you think of the movie, and I feel like this one's obviously going to make money. Will it make $1 billion like Skyfall did? I don't know. It depends on how it does overseas. The action is fine. I thought Dave Bautista was kind of a letdown, and Christoph Waltz was a letdown. I thought he just kind of phoned it in. But want to hear what you guys have to think about, say about that and Peanuts. I think that'll about do it for this week's podcast.
Do it
Follow
up.
us on Twitter at Chris Carl, at Terry_Schwartz, at Jim Vavida. Send us your thoughts at keepingitreal@ign.com. And for all things movies, keep it here on IGN.